Minisode.
La 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 la,
96.
minisode.
Happy to have you back. Happy to have Alex back.
Yeah, me too. Happy to be back.
Yeah, I feel less
now that
alone
I'm
now.
married, I talk about it like this the whole time. What do you think about that?
Ooh, how about Minisode 200? We do that.
Minisode 200 is an
200.
all guttural
What if we don't
episode.
though?
We'll see how the public
What if
reacts.
we like just don't?
We'll leave it to the people.
For a
Yeah,
full
we'll leave it to the
episode?
people. We'll
Unless
see.
the topics are like,
I'm creeping outside your window. At one time, I had sex with a Bigfoot. And other topics.
Is that your article today,
Alien
Alex?
probes.
Oh yeah. No,
They
the article that I have today is that I want to ask your permission to please let me read the very next story on this list of stories from
Oh,
this,
yeah, go for it.
from
Yeah,
this
yeah,
reader
yeah.
story, because
The what
I
happened to Chuck
glanced-
story is good.
I glanced at it briefly and it just seems so fucking hilarious that I think it needs to be read, and I want to be the one to do it.
Do
okay.
it. You're on. Take it.
This story, this is a mini-sode from a Reader Stories episode, by the way. So this is What Happened to Chuck by Gristlegran on Reddit. This is a story relayed to me by an old friend, but I got the okay to share it. Names have been changed, of course, and feel free to read on the podcast if you want. Me and 5 or 6 other coworkers were on lunch from our construction job, demoing a hospital on the shore of the St. Johns River many years ago now. We were all sitting around one of those decorative concrete tables with the concrete benches, bullshitting and telling jokes, as one does in a job like that. We had worked with this guy named Chuck since the project started, and he never really sat with the core group of guys, always seemingly preferring to sit in his truck or what have you. Chuck lived outside of the city of Jacksonville in a more rural location. The conversation got around to what else but aliens and the paranormal. Most of us all shared a story we heard or read in a book somewhere. It was jovial and lighthearted. Then it came to Chuck's turn. He looked nervous and a little anxious. After some light ribbing and asking him what was wrong, he asked us if he wanted to hear a real story that had happened to him and his family not 2 months ago at this point. I remember my dad, who I was working for and was a huge sci-fi nerd, perk up and was always down for a good story. Let us know. We were having a long lunch that day. Chuck was a hyper guy, always cracking jokes and just being full of energy all the time, almost to the point of tweaking. When Chuck sighed like a man who had something weighing on his shoulders, we all sat up and took notice. His friends, who also worked with us, named Pete, placed his hand on Chuck's shoulder and told him it's all right. Presumably, he had already heard Chuck's story, which is what I'll get to now after all this setup. Chuck, his wife, and their son had all settled into bed one fall night, and everything seemed nice and quiet, what with it being in the country and them living in a trailer on a piece of land. Then, around midnight, Chuck said he heard something rustling outside. He tried to ignore it, reasoning it was some kind of varmint or something. What he couldn't explain away was his bedroom being filled with a bright bluey-white light. He was able to look over and see his wife peacefully sleeping, unaware of the 1,000,000-watt light bulb outside the window and filling the room. Then there was darkness. He came to and looked around groggily as if he had been drugged. He wasn't alone. His wife, his son, and he were being moved down a bright hallway with lights passing over them. He recounted to us that yes, he was moving, but it wasn't the familiar feeling of being rolled with the wheels bumping along. It was more like a gliding. His eyes darted around trying to process what was going on. About that time, a being that, hearing him describe it, sounded very much like a gray with the large head and almond-shaped eyes, reached and put his hand on his face. Chuck tried to yell out to wake up his wife and son for help, for anything. He was able to move his head just enough to see his wife and son being led into separate rooms, and then again, he went unconscious. Chuck was awoken from the sensation of pressure around his midsection. He was able to look around a little and saw more of the beings milling about as he was strapped in the machine that he described like an MRI machine around his midsection from his waist to just above the knee. One of the Gray's beings talked but did not move its mouth and told him to relax. It would be over soon. He described the feeling of ejaculating over and repeatedly, as if he was being milked. He remembered screaming as this was happening to him. Then he either passed out or was put under again. The next thing he remembered, his wife, his son, and himself were sitting on the couch completely naked. He said it was like they were suddenly jolted back into their bodies. They all looked at each other and suddenly started bawling their eyes out if they had experienced something traumatic, which they very much did. Days later, Chuck started to piece together what happened to him together from his memory. His wife and son had no recollection of the events of that, even when pressed by Chuck. They denied anything had happened to them, even the aftermath of them on the couch in the living room. I don't know much of the aftermath of what happened with Chuck and his family, but I do know that Chuck said he was separated from his wife at the point he shared the story of what happened to him that fall night, which was just 2 months previously, according to him, right? Everyone sat there in a stunned silence after he had gotten done with telling his story until someone spoke up and commented on the craziness of the story and nervously laughed. Then Chuck laughed like he always did. Yeah, it was a wild story, right? Look at all you guys believing all that mess. I don't know for sure whether Chuck was telling the truth, whether it was just a story he made up or something he'd read online somewhere. But I do know the way his face looked, telling his story to a bunch of construction workers. Tired and drawn, haunted like a man who fully believed everything that happened to him and his family. Chuck, Pete, and I eventually became good friends. Occasionally, I would ask him about his experience for some other details or anything, and everything I was coldly shut down, he thought I was poking at him. I assume and eventually I stopped asking, and after that job, everyone went their separate ways, and I never saw or heard from him again. I always thought it was just a crazy story until I started delving into the world of aliens, the paranormal, and listening to this podcast. I believe something happened to him, and too many things line up for it to be just a coincidence. Maybe he was under the influence and misremembered the entire night. I don't know. But what I know and will always remember was his face and his eyes as he recounted his story. The face of a man who knows that he had this horrific experience. And again, I want to remind the reader, Alex Fasciani here, the editor of this story, that what happened to him was that, I'm going to just read it one more time, just in case you guys missed it in that whole story.
I definitely did not miss this.
Yeah, it was, he described the feeling of ejaculating over and repeatedly, as if he was being milked. He remembered screaming as this was happening to him. Then he either passed out or was put under again.
Happened same thing that happened to Barney Hill. He described something similar.
Hold on. I must stress to everyone. For those on Patreon, you got to watch it. You got to see his face. But to those of you a few months down the road, when you hear this, the entire time Alex is like, there he was, being ejaculated multiple times. Mathis was just like, had this creepy nod smile.
Go on.
Yeah.
I told you the machine existed. I told you the machine was real.
That's just such a hot take. I told you the machine existed.
I told
Non-believers.
you get milked by an alien. That's why they won't do it to me, because I want it.
They'll come when they're called, though, straight over to you in LA.
I
So will you, actually.
I wish they would. That is horrifying, though, because the thing is, the get to like seriousness. If this is, we're going to take this as like true, and we think it really happened. I mean, that's the thread. All these people who go through this, it's horribly non-consensual. Like, they don't want to be doing it. It's all very forced orgasms. It's all like machinery doing it. It's like all very sexual, assaulty, rapey kind of vibes, and that like none of them want this. None of them. Right. So it's not fun. But also the fact that he goes, yeah, look at you all believe in me. I was like, it throws that little cast a little shadow of doubt.
A kernel of unreliable narrator.
Yeah, a little bit. But that's a phenomenal. That was a good story. It's a very good story. I hope Chuck is doing all right wherever he is. Alex, thank you for that. Jesse.
Hey, no worries.
What you got?
It's so weird to go the exact totally different direction with this. And it's a weird follow-up. I have no alien ejaculation in this story at all.
Unfortunate.
Well, what's the point?
Yeah, right?
Yeah, what is even the point of this? What I do have, though, for you is the Internet Archive.
Ooh,
Not sure if you all are following what's been going on lately.
No.
But the Internet Archive, for those of you who are familiar, is a website where you can find all sorts of stuff. It's a nonprofit that provides free digitized versions of various media or old websites through the Wayback Machine, games, books, music, whatever. So much stuff is there. It's basically a storehouse of all the things that may potentially be lost to time, or at least that's their objective, right?
Uh-huh.
Well, they recently came into some legal trouble for the fact that hosting books might be copyright infringement. And in 2020, HarperCollins, Penguin Random House, and a bunch of other ones that I can't remember right now, sued them for the fact that basically they're just putting books online. And
gotcha. Yeah.
The Internet Archive was like, it's like a library. The books are available and people can look at the books. And these companies are like, no, you are literally just taking books and putting them online. And then you're like, please donate to us. And so it became a big legal thing. Anyway, the judge on that case, that I think was in New York at the time, agreed with the companies and said that, they're absolutely correct. This is copyright infringement. Take down those books. But they appealed it, and they went to an appeals court. And literally today, we got our ruling on this. The appeals court agrees with the lower courts that scanning books and offering them to the world online isn't transformative, which is something that in our job we have to deal with quite often, especially
back,
in
the video game world. Yeah,
as a guy who's been doing Let's Plays for a long time, I understand.
Yeah, so they said it wasn't transformative enough. And the appeals court also said that the Internet Archive scanning and lending isn't controlled digital lending, very much like a library would do. So that was no good either. They agreed with that.
So somebody who's used Internet Archive for 1 or 2 books, you have to like log in and you have to borrow it for an hour. And then after the hour, you have to like re-ask to borrow it from the only.
And then only after a while are they like, do you want to use this for like a day?
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. The 3-body panel, the 3 judges who are on the appeals court said, IA, Internet Archive, copies of works in full, and then makes these copies available to the public in their entirety. It does not do this to achieve a transformative secondary purpose, but to supplant the originals. And that's kind of the vibe that the courts and the companies are going for, which is you're not doing this to like, hey, we're supporting the artists. You're literally just stealing their work and putting it online. I'm not sure if I agree with that completely, because the whole point of the Internet Archive is to save things for when, like, I don't know, people decide to get rid of the books. Or a website like the Wayback Machine, like people will literally remove stuff from their websites to cover up weird things. And that, I don't know. I'm not sure where I fall on that. But the courts did reject one of the lower court findings that because they're a nonprofit and they're asking for donations, that somehow it means they're profiting off the books.
That doesn't really.
They were like, no, that's
That's
stupid. If
out.
you start saying that, then anything that we do online that's for a nonprofit purpose, but like, please donate, like Wikipedia.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you can't say that.
Like writing about somebody's life, they're like, you need to get the rights to that person's life to write a Wikipedia page about them.
Exactly. Yeah, they're like, no. So at this point, the only thing left for the Internet Archive to do is go to the Supreme Court. But will they take it? Will they even agree with them? Who knows?
I fucking hope so.
Yeah. Meanwhile, they're facing more stuff because I guess a similar suit was filed by record labels over the Internet Archive's Great 78 program, which if you haven't seen, that's actually really cool. Basically, they're collecting vintage 20th century
records,
78 RPM recordings and digitizing them and then making them free to the public. That's like super freaking cool.
Preservation.
Yeah, that's pure preservation. And now they're being sued because, some guy somewhere was like, we can still make a buck off of that. How dare they?
It's a different recording. It's like through a 78 RPM record player. It's not even the same whatever.
But exactly. It's one of those things where like they're just because it's available. It's the same.
And people conflate this. People conflate this. Like people who argue against this shit, they like come at you and they conflate this with like not wanting people to make money off things they've made. And it's like, I guess in the case of a book that's been out for 3 months that lives or dies by how many it sells, I would be mad if the Internet Archive made that book available, which maybe they do.
Sure.
I don't know. But a fucking record from the 30s that is recorded on like bad technology that you're listening to for its historical context way more than you're listening to it to like get around iTunes. That's as slippery of a slope as any of this. To me, that's shit. That's fucking in bad faith. You're just like flexing to destroy free archives.
That's
literally.
Unfortunately the biggest problem is that there's like, where do you draw the line? Because if you have like books from the 1930s, right, that no one's buying, but it's nice to have an archive of like how to pick up ladies,
right?
That things like that. To
have, you like to call that one up from time to time.
I think it's every once in a while I'll get like a gag gift, and it's like talking to women, 1924, and I'm like, nice, I love.
I think you can still use that on like a train. Like if you're on a train, that's still the rules. Yeah,
but there's all sorts of different things like radio broadcasts, or there's so many things that archival purposes. It reminds me of, and this is in the gaming space for us at least, when there was several websites on YouTube that hosted old Nintendo music. And Nintendo
Yes,
went
I
after them
remember
and
that,
was
yep.
like, take that down. And everyone's like, but there's no place to listen to it otherwise. You haven't provided one, Nintendo. And it became a huge issue. And I think that's one of those things where if the person, for example, who is responsible for 20th century 78 RPM records is not providing them, that's on them. And the fact that people get upset, it's a huge issue. And it's just one of those things that as time goes on, we're going to lose more and more stuff. And so being able to digitize it and present it to the world and save it is, if anything, a noble cause.
It's crazy that anybody cares that super rich people get as much money as possible besides the rich people themselves. It really doesn't make sense.
Listen, it's not just an America thing. Obviously, it's a worldwide thing.
I feel like it's a huge problem here, especially though.
I agree. I think but there's this weird thing with like people who look up to them that they almost feel like they're billionaires in waiting.
Yeah, you think you're going to be rich, you dumb dummy. The system's rigged against you.
Yeah, they go to fight for these billionaires because what if it's them one day?
But there's an inherent problem, which is, be it courts or congressmen or whoever, the idea is that the rich have all the money. They will continue to have all the money, but they also fund your campaigns. So you can't go against them so it's like, all right, well, they funded my campaigns. So
Citizens United ruined all that. They removed it and fucked it all over.
And if you don't listen, you don't get money, and then you don't get reelected, and then you lose your job.
Yep. Well, let me wrap this up. Speaking of keeping things as they are and maintaining a record of them all, to kind of wrap up the UFO stuff from myself, I texted you guys last night a little bit about a weird thing, and it's been being looked into across multiple different news networks. And a few months ago, if you all remember, David Grush testified to Congress publicly. It was live streamed.
This is some
2
weird
hours
stuff.
long.
This is some bizarre stuff, actually.
Talked about everything from knowing the names of the companies, even saying some of them. Most of it was like, I can't tell you here. I need a skiff for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, also, that's what I was going to say. He's also taking extra care to be super careful putting boundaries between the things that he can and cannot say.
If you've never watched that interview, fucking go watch it.
It's crazy.
Especially if you're one of the people that are like, the UFO world is like all imaginary. Like, just go watch the interview. But
it still feels crazy.
We don't know when it was done, but there have been edits to the live streams themselves. Like it shows that it was a live stream, and the stuff that's been edited out has been about the non-human biologics. And it's not just one edit in one part. There's multiple edits throughout that cut it. And I'm going to link you guys the AP video that's edited. The CBS video was edited as well. And I need to check. They were looking into I think the NBC one. I haven't seen much there. But here is it's synced up to the time. You can go watch it. You will clearly see when the edit takes place. It's not very particular unless you're literally going through the 2-hour stream. For anybody who's going and looking this up, it is the Congress holds UFO hearing with retired Major David Grush from a year ago now, which is crazy. Not a few months. It was a year now. And it's about a minute 54 and 18 or so seconds is the first one. Boys, go ahead and if you haven't watched it, go ahead and watch it.
A minute 54?
An hour 54, hour
right.
54 minutes and 20 seconds. Sorry.
Okay, let's see
54
here.
minutes, 20
It should be synced up to the link I sent you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's like around 28 seconds. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, but I want let the build up of the question kind of.
Right. It just kind of skips. It's just literally a fucking cut in the footage.
Okay. There is also another cut at
Wait,
one.
hold on.
Yeah.
I clearly screwed up. Because I accidentally, I guess, put in the wrong message.
Oh, the
wrong link or something, because the video I'm watching is the AP video.
That is correct.
But I don't at 1
hour 54 seconds, 54 minutes 20 seconds. Go from there.
I am.
It happens at the 28-second mark, I think.
Trying to get to this 113 one, but the fucking scrubber is like being a little dippy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's clearly something there.
Well, it's cut. That's what it is. It's a cut out piece of the of the live stream.
Okay, but like,
removed.
why? What was the question that was there originally?
So everybody went back to the transcript, which is publicly available, and it
which
is.
is in
I'm
the
going to
chat
read you
also.
specific. Yeah, it's in our text. I'm going to specifically. I'll just read you the very thing that was removed. Down here, Miss Mace, the congresswoman says, "Okay, you say that the government is in possession of potentially non-human spacecraft. Based on your experience and extensive conversations with experts, do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?" Grush says, "It is something I cannot discuss in a public setting." Then the edit occurs. She goes on to say, "And was this documentary evidence, this video, photos, eyewitness? Like, how would that be determined?" And she goes, "And I cannot ask when you think this occurred. If you believe we have crash craft, as stated earlier, do we have the bodies of pilots who piloted the craft?" Grush answers, "As I have stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries, yes. Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?" Grush, "Non-human biologics, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still at the program."
Whatever you believe, that is fishy as shit.
That got removed.
Yeah, whatever you
there's
believe,
also
that's
another
fishy as shit.
back and forth that was removed at 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 33 seconds or so. Same thing, another weird fucking just like hard cut. So somebody went into the YouTube live stream post the live stream, and with the YouTube editor snipped out bits and pieces. The other part, it's also removed from the AP article as well. The written article, that whole thing is now gone
That's
as well.
the wild part to me.
So like, it's not just the video, it's also the written articles, and people are trying to dig through
How
some
do you
of these
get
things
the
to
AP
see
to retract information?
Yeah,
multiple parts.
I
Yeah.
can't figure out what what is the point if we already have the information?
Maybe they'll contact us too, and we'll find out.
Yeah, right. Like,
Now that we're
tell
talking
us
about
to
it.
cut it out. It's weird.
Yeah.
Again, it's not just AP. It's also CBS. They're checking NBC. Like, it seems like it's a weird, like, after the fact, like, remove it. And I don't like why. I don't understand that line of questioning.
Is there any conversation happening as to the why?
No, it's only just being discovered as of yesterday. It was it was found out, and so I don't know how long it's been edited for. Like, if only someone's starting to stumble on it now, because unless you watch the live stream, what are the chances people are going to go back and watch the live stream after like the first week of buzz?
Sure.
I don't know. We have no answer as to why yet. People said they have emailed and reached out to AP, but no answer. Nobody's nothing yet.
Huh.
And this is like one of those parts where you just throw it in the bucket of like, and it makes me sound
shit.
crazy.
Like,
but
what
it's
the
also
fuck is that? Yeah.
happening. Why?
It is weird. Again, this seems like one of those things where like, let's make it even more weird and we get more people's attention on this. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe, or like
strange.
it's disinformation. They're purposely just doing it to fuck around. Like, I don't know. Like, who knows? But it's not just on one video with one network. It's on multiple videos across multiple networks and written articles. So it's like,
Yeah,
it's
weird.
it's purposeful. But why? And why only that section of like the conversation and it makes, I don't know. But that's where I'm like, I feel insane. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Fucking hardcore, dude.
But yeah, it's one of those things that's just like somebody stumbled across it, and
It's really weird. The press fucks me up more than anything.
right. It's literally like AP. And it's not like fucking weird other things. People like the news places that people trust and would go to read articles or watch interviews specifically. Like, why? Why? I don't know. It's fucking weird.
Insane.
So I think there's been 3 or 4 edits found so far. That might be all there is. I haven't checked to see if there's been any updates since last night. So yeah, it's just, I wanted to bring it up because it's just one of those things that's just like, again, it's like that tertiary sort of evidence of like, okay, but why? Out of all the things, why the non-human biologic stuff specifically? I don't know.
Great question.
Now leave that with
Great
you
question.
and bring you closer to my insanity and why I lose my mind with this shit. Because
God
I'll
bless.
never have an answer. I'll never know. No one's going to say anything. AP's not going to say shit. CBS ain't going to say shit. And no one's going to talk about this because only a little subreddit on like kind of discovered it. Like, it's like so little people are going to notice it. It's not going to matter. So
That's why we got to keep watching the skies, baby.
keep watching the skies.
Keep watching the
On
skies,
that-
baby.
Thank you all so much for supporting us here at patreon.com/Chilluminati. We'll be back next week with a brand new minisode for you all. We appreciate you. We love you. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.